what's going on, Warriors? It's Guru Joe, and I hadn't done one of these in a minute, so I just wanted to get back to doing the Warriors Code, which is where I just talk about something, a little piece of philosophy or something that's on my mind, relevant from an experience in class, my life, what my students have brought up, either in their personal lives or on the mats, and my instructors too. And so a couple weeks ago, I was really privileged to go down to the Inasano Academy for Guru Inasano's 90th birthday. It was an amazing celebration. If you don't know who Guru Dan Inasano is, he's one of the most foremost instructor on the planet. He's truly an instructor's instructor because he has put out so many quality and qualified people throughout the decades, just decade after decade, and he's still doing it. There's a new generation of people coming up at his academy right now that they're sort of hitting their peak. And they're people that just started training with him 10 years ago, 15 years ago when they were young people in their 20s, and now they're approaching their 40s. And having gone down there this entire time, I've been training with him since 1999. It's just been a marvel to see, and in some ways I'm a little bit jealous. I'm like, oh, I wish I would have gone down there. But not only is he teaching there every day, he's always bringing people by, like John Jock Machado, like Eric Paulson, like Omri Bon in Thai boxing, like my coach Ajarn Chai, Kathy Long. I mean, you name it. He's just bringing people by to expose his student body, and for him to get, he likes the different perspective and continuing to get an education at 90 years old. I mean, it's so inspiring. And so during the course of that weekend, he did like this huge buffet seminar. It was like 12 hours of training a day. And one of the sessions was with Eric Paulson. And I realized I had seen Eric in passing over the years. We've gotten photos. He's a good friend of my personal instructor, Chris Clark, which I mention on this channel all the time. But I hadn't taken a class from him since like 2008. Now, to give you some perspective, in 2008, I would have been 28 or maybe 29 at the oldest. And I remember the class being kind of rough. We basically fought at the end of it for our lives. I was fairly new to grappling. I wasn't a blue belt yet. Gracie Jiu Jitsu hadn't really taken off in Oregon at that point. And so, yeah, we wrestled Eric's guys. Everybody got murdered, of course. And but like back in those days, you tap and they'd kind of hold on to it like too long. And so I remember me and a few of my students going to this course at the Inasano Academy. We were like, oh man, I don't know. I want to go to Eric's class, but I'm not sure. Well, just as I have changed in the last 20 years, so is he. His coaching style was so pleasant. It was so friendly. And during one of the breaks, I got a chance to talk to him on the side. And I was like, hey, how do you train at the academy? Because he's training the Rutolo brothers right now, Ty and Cade Rutolo. He wasn't their full-time grappling coach, although I think they're doing some with him now. But he's been coaching them for MMA, and I think their combined record is like 6-0. They're just on a tear, right? And I was like, hey, I remember back in the day, like, not tapping, things were rough, people get hurt. And he was like, those days are over. He's like, no, long gone. He's like, if we knew what we knew now, he's like, wouldn't be doing it. And I'm like, oh, well, how are you training the Rotolo brothers? And he's like, training? Everybody has fun. The goal is to have fun because you're going to put in the work. You're going to put in the work of doing takedowns. You're showing up every day. You're with your training partners. And he's like, everybody should have a good time on the mat. And that's what we've always subscribed to here at RCW. But it was really refreshing to hear because, I mean, this guy is a top level MMA coach. He's coached a number of world champions. He's been a world champion himself. And for him to say that, he was like, no, slow down. When we're in the training hall, we're having a good time. And I was like, oh, well, you got to slam each other. What about takedowns, And he's like, if you're 20 and you want to get slammed, he's like, we'll let you do it. He's like, anybody over 30? No. He's like, nobody's getting slammed. We just go to koizushi. We just go to the off balancing, and then we just relax. You got the takedown. You pick somebody up. So there's no nobody's smashing each other with the elbow across the neck when they're in the mount. There's nobody putting the thumb in the eye. There's just nothing dirty happening in the training hall. And I think this is important to bring up. And it's not that I always want to punch back and be counterculture, but it's like, you know how it is. You look online and at all our media sources, right? And it pigeonholes all of us into a stereotype, right? Even our algorithm, right? Sometimes whether it's Spotify and music, it just gets so homogenized where it's all kind of the same viewpoint. It's almost like AI, right? When you can almost tell now. I mean, I can, right? When you see something that's artwork produced by AI, it's all starting to look very much the same. Everything is the same, but the whole thing is like we're individuals, and it's like what Bruce Lee talked about, right? The expression, the self-expression of the individual. That's one of the things that drew me to martial arts is how can you be uniquely you? And this environment, cultivating how we can have fun in the academy and enjoy ourselves while here, I think is a super important part of all of that. But when we look online, we see this mystique of toughness as if like bravado is somehow related to like masculinity or true genuine toughness. I used to have a friend of mine, we were training partners, and he would always say, "Oh, I want to be genuinely tough looking," and he'd laugh and all this stuff. And like I didn't get it for the longest time. I was like, "What do you mean genuinely tough looking?" And eventually he was like, "Well," he was like, "Oh, I've been doing Muay Thai for like 20 years. Like I'm already tough. So now I just want to be tough looking so that nobody messes with me." And it was like big joke. The guy was just a pleasant person to be around, always joking and just always being humorous and that kind of stuff. So if you looked at him across from you in the restaurant, you wouldn't think, "Oh, that's the most dangerous guy in here," but he often was. And that's where we want to take it. We will kind of want to have that self confidence that comes through this fun athletic training where we look forward to showing up every day, but we don't need to wear it on the tip of our nose. We don't need to wear a chip on our shoulder and be all that. And it makes the academy so much better. You just get such a broader diversity of people because then everybody can participate. Once you start being tough guys, the gym whittles down to only tough guys. Instead of having 20 people on the mat, you got four. And it's less fun. It's actually your education dips when that contracts as well. Because without diversity of people, you don't have a diversity of ideas being brought to the table. There's people that I can tap out that have been blue belts or purple belts or whatever, but they've had something to show me. Whether it's, "Hey, coach, I saw this on the internet," or, "Oh, I never thought of like, what if I did this? Can I work this week that way?" And one of my most longtime students who's now an instructor, he's absolutely my peer. We share in ideas together. But maybe if we were tough and we had like a rivalry, we hurt one another kind of coming up, maybe he wouldn't want to be around here. Maybe I would have pushed him out and then he'd open his own academy. But he's like a total resource for me and everyone at the school too. And so you got to have this idea of cohesion, of camaraderie. And that's what I mean by fun. It's not just like, oh, fun being silly. Now we're still getting the work in. We're still getting all the repetition in, but we're having a good time. Just like you can go lift weights and you can be angry about it and get results. Or you can go lift weights and you can do it with like a scientific structure, a plan, and you can like get the same results, but you can be happier while you're there. You can lift weights and you can have a ton of vanity and like be kind of insecure with it almost because you're never big enough, or you can enjoy yourself and have like a more well-rounded perspective of yourself where not everything is tied to your identity of being hardcore and tough. When you're young, for me to hear this, that's hard to come by, like to reason with that. I understand that. But you want to look at your examples in the academy. When you roll with somebody like an Eric Shiley, or you get to roll with actually somebody like my coach, like Eric Paulson or Pedro Sauer or John Jacques Machado, they're not putting in a lot of force. You cannot get out of their entanglement. And so like that tells you, oh, that's where the reward is. The reward is just time on the mat. Like actually John Danaher, I don't know if he still does. He used to have this rule that to be on his like A team, you had to train 365 days a year to always be at the academy. Not everybody lived up to that, but it was like, make this your lifestyle. If you're training 365 days a year, that means you're not getting hurt every day because otherwise you can't do it. So you have to preserve the body. You got to preserve your training partner. And then if you're running an academy or you're at a school and you can like plant this little seed, you will watch the place explode because then it becomes the place everybody wants to be. They want to show up because they want to see their friends in the community. They want to socialize with everybody. They want to constantly improve. They want to bounce ideas off one another. So instead of just, oh, I got one really good training partner, well, now I got 20, 50 good training partners, and they all have something different to share in that experience with. Anyway, so that's my advice for the week. Hope you guys enjoy watching. Thanks for being here. This is the Warriors Code. I'm going to try to do these things more frequently, and then I'm going to try not to politicize these. So if you like watching this politics free, I am going to maybe start a new long form channel. Maybe it'll be within this channel. I'm not sure. And then that will be a political discussion. So keep an eye out for that too. All right, everybody. Have a great weekend. I'll catch you later.